Very last time ahead of this NFL draft, we've got a full live show for you. A lot of smoke right now. It is, as Mike likes to say, smoke season. The 49ers, will they pick Walter Nolan? There seems to be a lot of hype regarding that. Mikael Williams, obviously, the good edge setter out of Georgia, is possible. There's a lot of talk of Shemar Stewart. I know that's extremely polarizing. And hey, maybe Mason Graham is going to fall. Let's talk about that for a bit. Don't worry, I'm not driving. We're in one of these again. Leaving the Dolphin Club, heading down the water. We'll probably have a cool little vista point at the end of this before I have to head on the train to the other side of the bay. Warriors playing tonight, so it's about to be Bay Area sports nirvana. Warriors game 2 at Houston. I think the Giants are playing tonight, right? But the NFL draft begins tomorrow. The 49ers will be making their decisions in Santa Clara at the War Room. I'm going to be down in Santa Clara. You can expect me to be there throughout the course of the next 3 days, talking to Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch after the 49ers picks. And maybe, just maybe, somebody like Mason Graham, the Michigan defensive tackle, is going to be available at number 11. There's growing buzz that there could be a drop from Mason Graham. And now there's so much smoke. Again, at this time, 24 hours before the draft, it is always filled with misdirection, uncertainty, smoke. Teams want that out there because nobody wants their true intentions to be made public. So a lot of false intentions are intentionally broadcast. But in the case of Mason Graham, it's just a funny reminder as we take a look at the Transamerica Pyramid. I love the view straight down Columbus. What a San Francisco shot. Pyramid, driverless car in front of us making a turn. I'm inside a driverless car making a turn. People thought they had this draft so figured out. This happens every single year. And over the course of the past couple months, Mason Graham hadn't even been seriously considered for the 49ers in a lot of these mock drafts because the assumption was that he would not be available at pick number 11. Now, all of a sudden, about 24 to 48 hours before the draft, there's a lot of buzz that Mason Graham, maybe he will be available, which just underscores that people don't actually know anything. It's a whole bunch of conjecture. And for people who like the draft, I get it. This is what makes things so fun. But when you watch Mason Graham's tape at Michigan, and he played for Jim Harbaugh, helped win a national title for the Wolverines, he probably has the best hand usage out of any defensive tackle in this draft, and that is saying something because it is loaded with quality interior defensive linemen. The highlight tape for Mason Graham at Michigan was awesome. He carried that defense alongside Kenneth Grant. Don't forget about the second defensive tackle who's not as highly touted. The general, they call it scuttlebutt, right? The rumors, the direction of the way that things are flowing. The general scuttlebutt here has been that Mason Graham might be slipping a bit in terms of draft stock entering Thursday, while Kenneth Grant might be gaining some traction. So maybe these two will be drafted a little bit more closely together than initially anticipated. Meanwhile, the 49ers have done a lot of work on Walter Nolan. This is the defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. I think a comp for Walter Nolan when I watch his tape is Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter was dominant at the University of Georgia. Walter Nolan, SEC, game wrecker as well, good against the run, 10-plus sack guy when he was in pass rushing situations. The 49ers obviously hosted Walter Nolan. The homework that they did on him seemed to be extensive, and there's a reason why he has become one of the, I would say, the three most popular picks for people making these last-minute projections to the 49ers. It's Walter Nolan, Mikael Williams out of Georgia, and then lately we're seeing another big Shemar Stewart push, although there are still several questions about that. And those questions won't go away even if the 49ers do actually draft Shemar Stewart. But one team to watch out for is Carolina. Carolina's at number 8. The 49ers are at number 11. It's a chance that a team like the Panthers could be interested in Walter Nolan at number 8. If they're not interested in Nolan number 8, well, then there's a really good shot that he's going to be with the 49ers, or at least on the table for the 49ers at number 11. And if he's on the table for the 49ers at number 11, there's a good chance that he's going to eventually be on the 49ers, because I do think that they like Walter Nolan a lot. But we can talk about these defensive tackles until we're blue in the face. I think the truth is, if one of the premier offensive tackle prospects ends up either available at number 11 or in reach for the 49ers at number 11, say a moderate trade up, I think that could throw a big wrench into this assumption that the 49ers will take a defensive lineman. We're turning on to the Embarcadero here at San Francisco. One of my favorite things about the Embarcadero on Market Street are these trolleys that they get from different cities around the nation. Old school vintage trolleys, not to be confused with the cable cars, which we often see here in these driverless car rides. Those are the F Market Line trolleys. So if we go back to the offensive linemen, there are 3 truly premier guys by consensus in this 2025 draft class. People talk about Will Campbell out of LSU. A lot of people like to talk about Armand Membou. Armand Membou out of Missouri, a really, really toolsy player. If you look at, just traits-based guys, I think Campbell and Membou are up there testing-wise with the likes of Trent Williams. So there's a lot to be excited about regarding those 2 players. But we should not be sleeping on Kelvin Banks Jr., the offensive tackle out of Texas. I think that early in the draft process, there was a lot of talk that this guy would be better suited at guard in the NFL, and that hurt his stock amongst the casuals, amongst people that are just talking about the draft, even though it's not their living. But if teams, actual NFL executives, believe that Kelvin Banks Jr. can play tackle effectively in the NFL, and he's got some really polished college tape playing tackle, then he's going to be drafted as a tackle, and that means he could be drafted just as high, if not higher, than somebody like Armand Membou. Do not rule out the possibility that the 49ers really love Kelvin Banks. I think when we started this entire draft process before the 49ers let go of a couple defensive tackles, or one defensive tackle, Malik Collins, and one defensive end, Leonard Floyd, I think there was so much focus on the potential of the 49ers grabbing an offensive lineman. And then when the 49ers left free agency with a lot of holes along the defensive line, the automatic assumption turned into they're going to draft a defensive lineman. And the particularly big holes are at defensive tackle, but I get it. Defensive end, edge rusher is typically harder to get later in the draft, so that might be what the 49ers focus on earlier in the draft. Either way, the big time focus on offensive line from fans has seemed to shift to the other side of the ball. But that might not be the case when it comes to the 49ers' way of thinking. They could potentially see this draft as something that offers a ton of good defensive linemen in the middle rounds or something past the first round, and only has what they really want at offensive tackle earlier on, maybe at number 11. Maybe they really, really love Kelvin Banks out of Texas. And if he's available, or if he's within striking distance at number 11, maybe they do depart from that defensive line path. My main point is that we cannot make any assumptions. People are very arrogant about their draft process and how they predict things, and they'll come out with a mock draft and they'll think that other mock drafts are terrible because theirs, for some reason, has magnitudes of importance above whatever else somebody else has come up with. Nobody knows anything at the end of the day, right? People are guessing on all of this stuff. People are projecting on all of this stuff. If this was a definite science, then the NFL draft wouldn't be nearly as exciting. So anytime that I see groupthink, I immediately run in the other direction, and I at least try to examine what the alternative possibility could be. And I'm seeing a lot of groupthink surrounding defensive line. Is there a very high chance the 49ers pick a defensive lineman in that first round? Of course there is. But I think it's foolish to rule out the possibility of San Francisco going offensive line first and then moving to defensive linemen later in the draft. We got another trolley here. What city is this one from? They usually say on the side what city they come from. That one is from St. Louis. Cool. Former home of the Rams, St. Louis. Now, if we pan this way, see KGO ABC 7. See their little headquarters there. There's the Transamerica Pyramid. There's the Embarcadero Center. And here's the waterfront in San Francisco. You can see the ferry building. We're going to go out to a pier here to end this show before I have to get on BART, the subway that's going to take me under the bay. Going over to the East Bay to watch the Warriors game tonight. Warriors Rockets. It's going to be very, very fun. That was fun on Sunday night. Warriors put on a vintage performance. I think Steve Kerr said that it felt like 1997 again. That was his final year with the Bulls. They're actually playing some defense. Neither team hit 100 points. The Rockets, they play some physical basketball and they play some ugly basketball. They aren't particularly skilled. They aren't particularly good shooters. Oh, we got another trolley. I think that one's actually from San Francisco. Back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, that one ran here in San Francisco. Now it runs here in San Francisco again. Vintage here in the city. But yeah, the Rockets, they play some ugly basketball, and I think that's why the Warriors are going to win this series. But we'll save my basketball analysis for a little bit later. The Bears, who pick right in front of the 49ers at number 10, they might be interested in the Boise State running back, Ashton Jeanty. Why is that? Well, because the Bears have a new offensive coordinator. The new offensive coordinator's name is Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson was formerly with the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions loved the power run game. I mean, that was what the Lions were all about, right? They wanted to build a power run game to make life easier for Jared Goff. And I think that when we look at what the Chicago Bears have done with the Lions' former offensive coordinator, now at the helm as their head coach, Ben Johnson, they're trying to make life easier for Caleb Williams, their second-year quarterback. So they've added a bunch of offensive linemen. That was the priority of free agency. It looks like they're going to use those linemen to try to pound the rock. They want to take pressure off of Caleb Williams. Well, a good way to do that would be to pick the best running back in this draft. There's a really good chance that Ashton Jeanty, the Heisman Trophy finalist, will not last all the way until pick number 10, where the Chicago Bears are slated to select just ahead of the 49ers at number 11. So if the Bears are concerned with that, they might trade up. If the Bears trade up and if different stuff happens right in front of the 49ers, it could all lead to a domino effect regarding the 49ers' options at number 11. So keep an eye on that as far as dynamics for San Francisco and how they might affect the 49ers. I think Jeanty is a really special player. He's going to be a hard runner. And when you look at what the Lions got from Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery when Ben Johnson was there, you could see how they'd be really intrigued with Ashton Jeanty in Chicago. That'd be a very, very good NFC North running back. I'd love that pickup for the Chicago Bears. But I think Caleb Williams has a lot of strides to make. Obviously, Ben Johnson is doing what he can to set him up for some success here in year 2. Shemar Stewart is the next player that we have to talk about. We see a lot of mock drafts with Shemar Stewart's name in them at number 11 to the 49ers. He's got a missed tackle rate of nearly 27% in college. So there's so many problems here. I know I made a video about Shemar Stewart right after the NFL Combine where I pointed out that this was one of the best testers that we had ever seen, like at any position. So obviously there's intrigue about this player because he runs like the wind. He's got big size. He has everything that a coach dreams of from a physical perspective. But then when it comes from a production perspective, I think it's downright scary. I mean, you'd have to have a lot of confidence in your developmental abilities as an NFL team because he only averaged 1.5 sacks per season at Texas A&M. And then, you know, when you look at some other stats, like the missed tackle rate, it's nearly 27%. It's absurdly high. I mean, this is a player, you put on the tape of Shemar Stewart, he misses a lot of plays. Now, you could say that the Texas A&M scheme wasn't any good. Oh, boy, last-minute break here by Casper. Decides to stop on a dime right at Washington Street. I was going to show you guys the ferry building. This building right there survived the 1906 earthquake. Still standing tall at the Ferry Plaza Embarcadero Center right across the street here in San Francisco. Ferry building is a good spot to go if you want to check out the Saturday Farmers Market. But any day of the week, you could go in there and they've got a lot of the growers from Northern California, olive oil, you know, there's bread shops in there, everything you could think of as far as gourmet food. Ferry Building Marketplace is where you go. 49ers want to make a delicious meal of a roster this year. So they're going to be shopping at the NFL Draft, where they have 11 picks. I would urge people to not obsess too much over the first round in this draft. We've said time and time again, and this is something that John Lynch firmly believes, the 49ers are big-time proponents of the middle rounds of this draft. They think there might even be starters still available on day 3. And if that actually ends up coming to fruition, it's great news for the 49ers since they've got 11 picks, which is the most in the NFL. 3 of those picks are in the 7th round. And we know that the 7th round should not be scoffed at. That's where Brock Purdy was selected. That's where Jawan Jennings was selected. I mean, the 49ers have had a lot of success late in the NFL draft. So, you know, people are going to be focused a lot, and rightfully so, tomorrow on pick number 11 for the 49ers, but there's still going to be 10 more selections happening, at least for San Francisco. Maybe they are able to trade back and gain even more. Look, we got an influencer, just like me, doing a little stand-up right in front of the Ferry Building. I don't know who that is. I don't know if he's live. Maybe he's reporting on the NFL Draft. That'd actually be really cool. But there's the Ferry Building for you guys. Nice little look at Pier 1, Port of San Francisco. Now I'm going to loop this back around, and we're going to Pier 14 right now. So I'm going to give you guys a nice little view of the bay as we continue talking. You know, it's a nice day, but it's not a spectacular day. I think it's pleasant when you walk outside, but it's a little gray. It reminds me a little bit of Seattle, where they don't get as much sun. Now, here's something really interesting. Brad Graham is over in Green Bay for the draft, and I saw that there was some media availability with Daniel Jeremiah, the great NFL network analyst. Does a really good job. Daniel Jeremiah had a wild card kind of pick for the 49ers. And I was talking about the offensive line a little bit earlier. I was talking about one of the premium tackle prospects. And, you know, if Kelvin Banks, Armand Membu, Will Campbell, if those guys are somehow available at number 11, maybe the 49ers' plans change. Well, how about if Gray Zabel is available? This is what Daniel Jeremiah said. Where's this one from? Twin Cities, the Twin City lines. So that's where the Vikings play. An old trolley from Minneapolis, St. Paul. That was cool. So we've seen one from San Francisco, one from Minneapolis, St. Paul, and one from St. Louis. Got a little bit of a Midwestern flavor to our trolley sightings here in San Francisco. But, you know, speaking of a Midwestern flavor, Gray Zabel, North Dakota State. I think Daniel Jeremiah just said FCS prospect, and I think he might have hinted it was an offensive lineman. But I think if we put 2 and 2 together, it's fairly apparent that he was talking about the great interior offensive lineman from Trey Lance's alma mater, North Dakota State. Now, oh, he just dropped his mock draft and Gray Zabel is in it to the 49ers at number 11. Mike is letting me know that Daniel Jeremiah might be picking Zabel. So this would be fascinating because a lot of people are talking about Zabel as a center. I'm going to be getting out of the car right now. Stay right here because we've got more to see. We're going to say bye to Casper. This is a unique shot down Mission Street. It's the tallest building on the West Coast, the Salesforce Tower. And why don't we now walk across the street as we finish this 49ers Live. So the way I have to do this is because my legs are so long, my backpack has to be in the back seat. So I get out. I'll show you guys the car from the outside. It's a Jaguar. Speaking of the NFL draft, where they pick number 5. This car is picking at number 5. James Gladstone, the young Jacksonville GM, has been creating a lot of smoke. Who knows what Jacksonville wants to do besides pick defensive linemen. And there we go. The Jaguars leaving to go draft. Maybe we should get out of their way. Maybe the Jaguars want to back up. I think the Jaguars are stuck. Oh, there we go. The Jaguars are off and running. Or the Jaguar is off and running. Say bye to Casper. He did a good job. Let's jaywalk right here. Make it across Mission Street. And we will be headed toward the pier. Daniel Jeremiah has Kelvin Banks Jr. to the Raiders at number 6. So there you go. The stock definitely is rising for Kelvin Banks Jr. offensive lineman out of the University of Texas. Our good friend Bobby Burton runs a Texas YouTube channel, On 3 Texas Football. I guarantee you, if the 49ers pick one of these Texas players, we'll be talking to Bobby about Steve Sarkisian's Longhorns. That was a really, really talented team. And Calvin Banks, it's not surprising to me that the stock is indeed rising for him, because if you watch the Texas tape, he was a really, really polished offensive tackle. So we're now going to make it across the Embarcadero over to this pier. This should be a really good spot to finish up this 49ers show. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and deliver them. We're going to finish talking about Gray Zabel, who, I really think that there's been so much consternation about the 49ers center position and Jake Brendel that if the 49ers picked Zabel, I think a lot of 49ers fans would actually rejoice, because they want to see San Francisco make moves at that interior line. Now, I wouldn't be sure if Zabel would be in line to start immediately for the 49ers. But I do think that, if this is what happens, it would be one of the more intriguing twists that we've ever seen, because they've never drafted under Shanahan and Lynch an interior offensive lineman in the first round. He was really, really good at the Senior Bowl. Maybe you could play him at guard initially and then put him at center the next year. My thought is that offensive line is no longer just limited to fortifying the tackle position with premium draft picks. I think it's really, really important to acknowledge that some of the best pass rushers are defensive tackles, and they're taking advantage of pass rushing lanes against guards and against centers. So you better be good blocking in the interior. All right, let's flip this around. Look where I am. There's a ferry. There's a big line of people waiting at the ferry building to get onto the ferry. It's probably going to Alameda or Oakland. These are high-speed boats, as you can tell. And this is the pier that takes us out into the bay as we look at the Bay Bridge and the city behind us. I kind of like the gray skies today. Don't have to squint at the camera as we're talking about the 49ers draft. Maybe I sit down on one of these chairs and we finish the show from here. Wait for this ferry to leave. Look, I could even sit around right here. Oh, this is great. This chair, it's a spinning chair, although I feel it's a little wobbly. I feel I'm gonna fall. I'm gonna get dizzy doing this, guys. You can see all of San Francisco from this chair right on the pier, and I'm gonna get motion sickness doing this show, and you guys probably gonna get motion sickness watching this show. This is kind of cool, though. What do you guys like better? Do you like the skyline with the ferry building? Do you like the view of the ferry? Do you like the view of the pier with the Bay Bridge? Or do you like a view of the water and the Bay Bridge? That is not the Alcatraz ferry, no. That is the ferry that goes to Alameda. That's more of a commuter ferry. All right, I'm ready for some questions. Mike, toss me what I'm supposed to talk about right now. It's been a long time coming, but the NFL draft starts tomorrow. Earlier today, I discussed George Kittle. I've discussed Brock Purdy's contract situation a lot. The national media making a whole lot of unnecessary noise regarding George Kittle. It's really funny because, I really appreciate all of you who watch this channel, because you guys take the time to watch informed breakdowns. You don't accept clickbait as being enough. And I think that those of you who watch this channel regularly knew months ago that the 49ers were going to try to extend George Kittle this offseason, and that it would almost certainly happen this offseason given George's track record, given the fact that he's one of the best weapons in football, given the fact that he's still in his prime, and given the fact that he's entering the lame duck year of his deal. It should not be a surprise that this is happening right now. Yet the national media looks at this kind of stuff and tries to make it juicy and salacious, and they try to look at run-of-the-mill things and create drama that really isn't there, such as, oh, George Kittle is not at the voluntary portion of the offseason program, while omitting the fact that he hasn't been at this part of the offseason program in any season since he signed his second contract. So I really appreciate everybody who watches this channel, because I think that we've covered this stuff in such depth over the course of the past few months that, you know, none of the really bad clickbait reporting phases us. We're able to kind of see through the noise, and it would only be possible if we had the community that was actually listening and being involved in all of this discussion. So thanks for your questions, thanks for paying attention, and we're about to enter another few days of the Wild West with the NFL draft, and I cannot wait to cover it. Yep, Salvador says, I'm looking at some of the comments, the 49ers will draft Gray Zabel. That would be a hell of a pick. I wish that, you know, maybe I'll toss Gray Zabel into the title of this video after, or maybe we'll make another video here from the pier, since I love this spinning chair so much. I mean, spinning chair is definitely the way to go. But Gray Zabel to the 49ers, that would break a lot of brains, but it'd make a whole lot of sense. If some of the best edge rushers in football are coming, rushing on the inside, I mean, the 49ers do that with their own defensive line. If that's happening, then why wouldn't you want to have really, really good interior offensive linemen? Question, how likely are the 49ers to trade future picks to move up for a specific player? They would really, really have to love somebody to make that a reality. Because the 49ers right now, I call it the shotgun approach. You want as many picks as possible because you know that the draft is a crapshoot. And you know that you're not going to hit on every single pick. And you've hit multiple times on picks from the 5th to the 7th round. So once you start packaging future picks to move up, you are lowering your chances of success in the crapshoot because you have fewer darts to throw up against the wall. So I think they would have to really, really love somebody in the top 10. And this draft, it just isn't as strong in the top 10 as previous drafts have been. So I just don't see that as very likely. In fact, I think they want to trade down. If possible, the 49ers want to trade down. I don't think that it's likely to happen because other teams view this draft in the same way, and they also want to trade down. And it always takes two to tango. If you want to trade down, somebody's got to be willing to trade up. And it doesn't really seem that this is too prolific of a trade down environment. I think Mike is sending me the justification from Daniel Jeremiah for the Gray Zabel draft pick, and he's saying that this offensive line is in need of an influx of talent because of Trent Williams' age, Aaron Banks' departure, Colton McKivitz is in a contract year. Jake Brendel, I thought, regressed last season dealing with a knee tendonitis. Hey, I agree they need an influx of talent. I would not disagree with the Gray Zabel pick. Look at the microphone doing its work now. I think you guys can probably still hear me even though it's really windy. I'm literally sitting on a swivel chair in the San Francisco Bay. You've got to love this mic. It has done the job multiple times. Now my hair is going crazy, but I just got out of the water. You know, I just swam in this water. I'm fired up for the draft right now. It wasn't warm, I'll tell you that. And it wasn't inviting. I don't think it looks very inviting as we flip this camera around. Fortunately, I didn't get run over by a boat, but I didn't swim in this part of the bay. I was a little bit around the bend over there. It's about 55 degrees right now, and it definitely has me ready to go. It'd be really, really cool if we saw a seal for this show, but I don't think the seals like to hang out all too much around the big boats because these things can really move. Mike, feed me. What else do I need to talk about? Guys, also, can you let me know what time it is? Because my watch right now, I didn't set it this morning. It's a little bit off. And I need to know when I need to catch my train. So if somebody could comment the time, because I can't see the time on my screen on this phone. It's 5:28. Oh, that means I'm gonna have to get going here in a little bit. 7:28 p.m. in Texas. 5:30 p.m. or whatever, around there here on the West Coast. When do we get a Moody competition? Mike asks. Yeah, this could be a Moody 49ers update, right? Jake Moody, after the draft, the 49ers are going to bring in some competition, likely a veteran to compete with Jake Moody, but they're going to see if maybe a rookie is somebody who they can bring in. You know, they've been looking at Andres Borregales, the kicker out of Miami, I think by way of Venezuela, right? So the 49ers will see what kind of young talent they can acquire, and then based on that, they'll go to the veteran market after that, and then the competition will begin over OTAs and, of course, over training camp. A lot of good questions. This has been fun. Time for me to go watch the Warriors. San Francisco in the background. We're here on the pier. Oh, look, those are the 5:30 bells. From the ferry building. Cool to hear. Mike is working. This mic is working. Mike is working as well. Mike was on the show last night. You guys should give that a watch. I think he's a true expert on the draft. Watch last night's show for all of his insight. Warriors game tonight, game 2 from the other side of the bay, the Warriors' former home over in Oakland. And yes, the water was nice and cold, but it was fun to swim in. So long. This has been our last 49ers update live on the day before the draft. And of course, we're going to have a lot more content tomorrow. See you guys soon.